Hey, Miles Beckler here, milesbeckler.com, and in this video we're going to talk about what makes a good domain name. And if you've ever sat there thinking, okay, here's my business idea, I know my funnel, I know my niche, I know my target market, I just can't come up with a name, know that you're not alone. I struggle with naming things. I've had challenges with getting domain names over the years, and it's something that I've geeked out on a major level. I've bought and owned hundreds, if not thousands, of domain names. I've sold domain names. One domain name I almost sold for just under $10,000. So I've been experienced in the domain name game for a very long time. And it's really worth the extra night, 2 nights, 3 nights, weeks thought and time and energy and research to really get a domain name that you can kind of stand behind, something that you're excited about, because moving over time is very difficult, right? Like going in one direction and adjusting to another name with the same content, that's more difficult than totally starting a whole different niche site at some point in the future. So it's really worth it. And also, I've found kind of a personal thing, I usually need a cooling off period, right? Like I'll be in my mind and I'll be thinking, oh man, this is the best idea ever. And then I'll buy it and like 2 years will pass and I'll still own it and I'll still have done absolutely nothing with it. So they are just ideas, and they're easy to kind of like jump in, go all in. Luckily for most domain name registrars, they're like 10, 15 bucks a year. Personally, I use DreamHost as my domain name registrar. I don't use them for hosting. I only let them hold my domain names, and that's because they give me free domain name privacy, and it's like $12.95 per year for a .com. So let's get a little deeper here. The first big question I ask myself is, what's my goal with this domain name, right? Is this going to be a brand? Is this going to be a e-commerce website? Or is this going to be like a content or blog-based website that I'm going to use for content marketing? Because depending on which direction you go, you want to kind of either play the keyword game a little bit or not, right? So if you're going in the content realm and you want to build like an organic powerhouse of a website, yes, you want to keep some branding ideas in mind, but ultimately it's really good to be looking around certain keywords and to include partial keywords into your domain name. Because you can go on a keyword tool and look and find out how many people per month are searching for that specific keyword. Now, I wouldn't expect you to find a 2-word keyword or a 3-word keyword match with a domain name available. That wouldn't make sense in this day and age because so many are taken. But you can take part of the phrases, you can add words, you can kind of work it around a little bit to get that keyword at the domain level. Now, it used to mean a lot more on the SEO level when you had your domain name in your keyword, you had your keyword in your domain name. It actually gave you a big bump in the search engines. That's not exactly the reason why we're doing that right yet. We're doing that more from a user behavior. If you're expecting people to come across your website in Google and find your long tail blog post content, when your domain name has the keyword, it bolds it in Google and it really kind of propels it in their mind like, oh man, I was searching for how to get a domain name and I just found this how to get a domain name guide.com blog post. They must be legit. They've got, it's in the name, right? So it's almost like a psychological trick is why we do that, to make people feel like they're in the right place. If you're searching how to get a domain name and you find bakingsourdoughbread.com, you're gonna be like, I don't know if I really trust this person to give me advice on my domain name stuff. So you want to maintain relevance is really what you're going for. It doesn't have to be an exact match keyword. It's all about relevance. The other big question you need to kind of ask yourself is, how do you plan on getting your traffic, right? Are you going to be going after organic traffic, as we just said? Are you going to be going after paid traffic and using like Facebook pay-per-click ads or Google pay-per-click ads to drive people to your website? Or are you going to be doing offline marketing? Radio marketing, print marketing, TV, the game changes a little bit. If you're going for organic traffic, you can add hyphens in your domain names. You can have a little bit longer of domain names because they don't have to remember it. They're simply clicking a link at some point and it takes them there. They don't have to type it in. They don't have to make sure it's all spelled right, etc. It's always going to be hyperlinked at some point. So you get a little more leeway. If you're doing something like a radio ad, it needs to be short, like able to be remembered instantly. It's got to be like phonetic, how it's spelled has to be exactly what it sounds like. And if you're doing paid traffic, you definitely have a lot more leeway. You can kind of send someone with a paid ad to just about any domain name you want, and there's never going to be a confusion on how is it spelled and is there a hyphen in it, etc. So those are really the big questions. Get clear on what your traffic source is going to be and what the goal of the project and the goal of the website is, and try to focus down from there. One thing that I kind of have a hard line with now is I only purchase .com domain names. I don't do .net, .info. I've got a couple of .orgs that I use that I've had for a while, but honestly, it's user behavior again. It's ingrained in the mindset of hundreds of millions of people, if not billions of people, .com. There's this like .io that's coming out, and it's kind of like the input output, even though it's some random island. It's like, oh, it's the Indian Ocean. So domain name .io is Indian Ocean is what .io stands for, but a lot of startups are using it, and a lot of tech and software companies are using it because IO in their world stands for like input output. So it's becoming this kind of hipster thing, right? But I don't think that's going to last, and I know for a fact that .com is going to last. Now, if you're in New Zealand, or if you're in the United Kingdom or Australia, and you're really going to focus in on your country's audience as your audience, get whatever your country's top level domain is. I'm from the United States. The .com is kind of how we roll. You can do the .com globally, but I really do think sticking with that .com is huge. The second thing I think you should consider is, first of all, is your personal name, right? Like milesbeckler.com, obviously I'm Miles Beckler, is yourname.com available? If it is, go buy it. I don't even care if you're going to use it for this project, but I would highly, highly recommend you consider using yourname.com for your project if there's a level of relevance of your expertise to where you're going. Now, I know that if you build this up around yourself, if you ultimately want to sell that website in the future, having it be yourname.com does not necessarily make that much sense. Having a brand in place does make great sense. But if you're kind of curious, or if you have an expertise in a certain area, in a certain realm, and you want to embark in that area, right now you see, I'm going to do a membership site, or I'm going to do info products. And if you realize that ultimately you're going to adapt what you're doing and you're going to make some shifts and adjustments, when you brand that all around yourself, the whole time you're pouring energy and effort into what you're doing, you're also you're pouring energy into your brand, right? You're building your personal brand, and that has value in a major, major way. Also, 7-8 billion people on this earth, just be sure to get your name, whether you're going to use it right now or not. It's really important to have. And like I've looked at many, I have many kind of brand-like domain names around this kind of platform I'm building, the milesbeckler.com, which is kind of internet marketing, online business, how to make money online type stuff. I've got at least a dozen names I could put this under, but I realized that ultimately a part of my goal is to get speaking gigs. I've been doing some more speaking, and I want to put out a book at some point. So really starting to brand Miles Beckler as the brand has a long-term value in everything that I'm doing. And it also kind of keeps me an extra measure of, is this quality, is this content up to like my quality? Am I willing to put my name on this? Because I'm honestly putting my name on everything. You notice a lot of people on YouTube, they'll do voiceovers, they'll do slideshows, and they'll have some branded name inside of their YouTube channel, or they'll run it all through kind of a nameless, a faceless domain name, right? That is just a brand and you never get to meet them. And there's something lacking there in my personal opinion. So I value putting myself out there and really kind of being the name and the face of it. And like I said, if you've got the chance to buy your domain, get it no matter what, just to lock that thing down and consider using it for the project. So how do you figure out what some of the next keyword options are for you? I've got a couple of tools that I really actually enjoy using. One of them is namemesh.com, and the other one is DomainIt. And what I do is I insert my keywords. So the first step, obviously, I do keyword research, and I'm looking for all of the different kinds of phrases that people might use to talk about the topic I want to contribute or I want to put out through this website. So then I take those keyword phrases and I run it through those two sites, the NameMesh and DomainIt, and I let them generate some ideas that maybe I wasn't thinking of. And I'll browse through this, I'll look through them. I've never actually found actually I take that back. I have one time found an exact, it popped up, I was like, oh my goodness, this is perfect, and I went and bought it. Most of the time, I'm looking at this for new seed ideas. It's more like I'm synthesizing what's in my head with the ideas they generate, with more ideas in my head, and it helps me bring more ideas to the table, because when I'm looking at domain names, I want more ideas, not less. And what I do is I start a notepad file, just a simple .txt file, and I'm tracking all of the different ones that are currently available. I use whois.net to check the availability. I don't register with them. It's just a simple setup to see if it's registered or not. I don't like using the domain name registrars, even though I think you can register through them, because they always just retarget me, and I don't know, I don't trust them at all. So I use whois.net, and I check if it's available. I'll put it on my short list. And I really try to build up a short list of like 5 to 10 different options that I have that are all .coms, and I just really play with it. Once you're starting to get a list of domain names that are potential for you, there's a few things you need to do. Number one, you got to make sure there's no tricky spelling or lettering in there, right? So none of this like changing the S's to Z's, right? For like, if it was a movie thing, like movie frames, you know, FRAMEZ.com. I don't like going down that path at all, because when you mention it to people, they'll never be able to find it. And I just think it's a little bit goofy. I'm not really into that. The other thing is using words that have awkward spellings or multiple spellings. In the English language, the word gray could be spelled G-R-A-Y or G-R-E-Y. So if you have gray in your domain name, literally there's a portion of people out there who are like spelling it wrong. They're like, oh, I went to your website, it wasn't found. And you're like, no, it's the other spelling. I've got a good buddy who runs earnestaffiliate.com, and the word earnest is a little bit challenging to spell. I think there's actually multiple ways you can spell it. And if you're doing a global-based audience, be aware that sometimes in the UK or in Australia, they spell words like color or realize differently than we do in the USA. So you got to really just make sure that you're super clean. You want a phonetic phrase for your domain name. And by phonetic, I mean when I say it and you hear it, you know how to spell it easily. It's like super simple. It's really easy for you to grasp. When you hear it, it makes it more memorable. And when people are reading it, it makes it that much more memorable and that much more kind of like realistic to them. I think it increases their willingness to take action, which is to click, etc., etc. When you've come down to your last few, I would recommend running a quick trademark search. You can go to USPTO, United States Patent and Trademark Office. I think it's uspto.org. And there's a way to run a quick free trademark search and just plug in, not the domain name itself. Obviously, they would have bought the domain name if that was their trademark, but take the words of your domain name, and if you've got the in the front of it or a in the front of it or something, put the words in, just the phrase that you're going to get, and search through the trademark database. There's a way to search it, and you just want to make sure nobody's actually trademarked the exact phrase that you're building your business around, because if you get going in that direction full speed ahead, you get a lot of traction, somebody owns a trademark, you could be running towards a really annoying cease and desist letter in the future, or worse. So just giving a quick glance there, I've never brought a lawyer into the process of doing that kind of research before. I just do kind of a quick search to make sure I'm not really encroaching on anyone's intellectual property, because that's something I just respect and I don't really want to get into there. So the other thing, I would say 3 words max on the number of words that you're going with. I've seen 4-word domains because there's too little words in there, and that's okay. The number of characters is what you're really concerned with, and we don't really want to go, I don't have an exact number, but like you'll know it when it's too long, right? Like the best website about affiliatemarketing.com is just too damn long. We need it to be short and succinct. Oftentimes coming up with ways to get alliteration or like onomatopoeia in there, which are some of the kind of English, I don't know what the exact word is. I don't even know what it is. It's something we learned in elementary school, and it's like blackberry, right? The numbers of syllables are the same. The first letter is the same. The Palm Pilot, like the things that have that kind of repeating sounds and they're almost like rhythmic, they've got like a rhyme to them. That's the kind of phrases that are really easy for people to remember and they really stick if you're going the brand way. Now, I don't think branding is great. Big brands in this day and age and startups in this day and age are doing all kinds of crazy stuff with their name. They're misspelling words, they're dropping out letters of words, they're duplicating and triplicating letters in the words when that's not normal. It makes it really difficult to find them. Theoretically, I think they're playing off of the hipster trend of I'm going to get some VC money and we'll just be able to spend $20, $30, $60 per customer acquisition. So I don't care if they can remember how to spell me. We're trying to do something that's like clever and cool. I totally shy away from that. Once you have your short list, right? So now you've got your short list. One important thing to do is when you're down to like 2 or 3, you've run through all these other filters we've talked about, go ahead and put your short list, take them one per line to where you can only see that domain name on a blank sheet. Have it typed out, close your eyes for a second, open your eyes, and then look at the domain name. What you're doing is you're looking to see where your eye goes within the words, right? If you have too many letters that back up together, like if one word ends in SS, like business, and then the next word starts with success, you would have 3 S's in a row, and that's really awkward. It looks awkward to the eye. So like mybusinesssuccess.com, although it sounds good, it might meet all the other criteria, when you glance at it in a domain name, that triple S is going to catch your eye and it's just going to look odd, so you don't want that. Another thing you're looking for is for weird words to pop out that you don't know are there. Like I've done this before. I don't remember the domain name. I wish I would have documented it, but I purchased a domain name that when I just opened my eyes and looked, I swear it said penis in the middle of it, and that was all I could see. And it was the result of 2 words stacked together, and in between those 2 words, it said something totally different, totally unwanted. I'd already bought that, and I was like moving forward with installing the domain name or installing my hosting on that, and my wife was like, "You realize like what that says right there, right?" And it was like, "Oh God, like." Back to the drawing board. So really take a moment to kind of glance at it, like the word therapist, right? If you type that out, it actually also looks like the rapist. You don't want that kind of stuff in your domain name. And it's maybe funny or kind of like, haha, right? Like I totally goofed up and did that myself once. But like, you really have to pay attention to how your users are going to experience your domain name the moment they reach it. And finally, you've got to make a decision. Right? I do recommend sleeping on it. I think great things happen when we sleep on it. Go take a walk on it, right? Like have a few of them in your mind and go take a long walk and just kind of like get away from it. Don't try to do this all in one sitting because you got to give your mind, your subconscious mind, some time to synthesize this. The last thing I'm going to mention, which I've used successfully in the past, is buying expired domain names. Now, a lot of these domain names are already taken. That's one thing you're going to find is as you're searching for the domain names, you're like, oh my God, like all the good ones are taken. That's not true. We just have to be really creative. I just 2 weeks ago picked up a very short 2-word phrase that's very exciting. I believe it's 12 letters and it's it's not an exact keyword match, but it matches pieces of 2 keywords. So they're out there and that was readily available, fresh, not a secondhand domain name or an expired domain name. But what happens is when we register domain names, we get them for a year, right? So at the end of that year, there's a lot of people like me who ended up having dozens and hundreds of domains. And finally, it's like, dude, I'm not going to be paying 12 bucks a year for 250 domains anymore. I'm going to let these go, right? Maybe I tried to sell them and I couldn't, and then I let them go. So when we let them go, they go through this cycle where for 30 days, the owner has a redemption period and the owner is able to go back and redeem their domain from their registrar. After that, it goes to one of 2 main secondhand or expired domain websites. First one is snapnames.com and the second one is namejet.com. And depending on which registrar they came from, they go into one of those 2. So you can actually go to those registrars and the Namejet and Snap Names and type in your keyword phrases there and look for domain names that are coming up, that are about to expire, that are really close to what you're looking for. Because odds are somebody has had a really good idea like what you're about to do in the past. Maybe they never took action. maybe they're one of those people who just got stuck in their thoughts or research or life got in the way and they just never did anything with it. And finally, maybe this week, next week is when they're ready to let it go. And you're able to go, they go onto an auction, right? And be careful. Don't get married to any of these names before you own them. I got in a bidding war with someone over a name around hosting that was really powerful. It was an incredibly exhilarating event. I bid it up over into multiple thousands of dollars, and then I finally led off and they were able to purchase the domain name that was on Snap Names. Absolutely thrilling experience. I'm so thankful I didn't spend that much money on that name because I probably wouldn't have done anything with it anyways. That was like a $70 domain that he and I at the last minute just went after it and bid it up. So that can happen. I don't think that's very common. Most of these domain names that expire, they go right back into the normal registration process if no one picks them up once they've expired. There is a third place for expired domains, and that's auctions.godaddy.com, and they handle their own. I totally forgot about that at first. So there's Snap Names, there's NameJet, and then there's auctions.godaddy.com, and you could just look for all three of those for anything that has a short kind of multiple word option that kind of fits your keyword phrase. If you are doing a content-based site and you're going to be relying on Google for search engine rankings to drive traffic over time, you really need to go look at the domain name from a backlink checker like the Moz checker. You can go to opensiteexplorer.org. That'll take you to Moz. You can type in the domain name and click enter. You want to see if anybody spammed the hell out of that domain name in the past. Because if somebody spammed the hell out of it in the past, you don't want to touch it. It'll have a lot of negative stuff. Back in the day with some of the black hat kind of SEO moves people were playing, people literally destroyed the domain name's value by getting links to the domain name from hundreds and hundreds of spammy websites. So if you go buy a website that has hundreds and hundreds of links from spammy websites and you're trying to break into the search engine optimization, you're going to find out it's not going to go anywhere because it has a bad reputation. So if you're going through the domain names and you're going to buy a used domain name, or excuse me, a secondhand domain name, then really, truly kind of give it a quick look on the opensiteexplorer.org tool, type it in, you'll see, it'll tell you there's a spam score, essentially, you'll see. But if you see no links at all, perfect. That's exactly what you want to see. No one's really messed with it too much. If you see a bunch of links and they've got this little spam score filter thing and that's like popping up, stay away. That's the danger zone. And I think I said finally or last thing like twice, so this is actually the last thing. Huge domains. There are people who have been collecting domain names and domain name portfolios. They're actually domain investment companies for years, right? And huge domains is one of them. And so if you find that if you find that a domain name is taken, take the time to go actually plug in the URL and see if you get a landing page that says, hey, this domain name is available for sale. If it is, huge domains is one of them. I would recommend, if you're interested, you can offer about 50 cents on the dollar to them. I mean, these are assets that are not moving anywhere. They have generally fairly high prices associated with them, but you're free to offer and negotiate. I would never start with less than a 50 cents on or a 60 cents on the dollar type offer. And I believe Huge Domains even has the opportunity to kind of rent to own, where you pay it in 12 monthly installments. Now, there is a lot to be said about a great short domain name. It can very well be worth thousands of dollars. I sold one domain name. I believe the final sale price was $8,800 that we negotiated on. His first offer to me was $1,500. And I pretty much laughed at him and was like, ah, right, dude, this is a five-figure domain. Like, you're tripping. Like, come back when you're serious. And we met at $8,800, and I sold the domain, went through escrow, escrow.com for that. So it depends on where you're at and where you're going. If you're building a big brand that you see being like a global brand that you could see growing to $1, $3, $5, $10, $100 million a year in revenue, it's worth it to have the name, right? Like you need to own that space if you're going that direction. If you're building a lifestyle business and you want to do info products, maybe a membership site, you don't need to invest that much in a domain name. You can be adaptable with your name. And for example, like on milesbeckler.com, if and when I put out a funnel course, I'm just going to run it through milesbeckler.com and it'll be my funnel course, right? Like I don't need to go create new domain names for everything I do. I like the thought of centralizing it and focusing it all into one place so all my energy flows to one domain. And since it's my name, I'm pretty much going to be living with this name for the rest of my life. So it just makes really good sense for me to just go in that direction. That might not work for you, but it's something to consider. I thank you very much for your time. We went 25 minutes on this, but it's really a deep topic and it really is important to take your time with this process and to think about it. I know people who, when they get a short list of like 5 or 7, they'll just go buy all of them. And then the next day they'll go, you can get, some of them have like a 30-day or a 5-day or a 7-day refund period, and they'll just refund the ones that they don't want. But I've never had somebody beat me out of an idea that I have sitting on a notepad file on my computer, and I like to just take my time with it. So I make these kinds of decisions slowly, but once I buy that domain, full speed ahead, hosting, WordPress, build it out and get it going as fast as I can to start to recoup the investment. And that is what we're going to cover in some future videos, is how to install WordPress, how to get your website, how to get your server set up, your email account set up, etc. And we're moving in that direction now. So thank you very much for your time. Again, I'm Miles Beckler, milesbeckler.com. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already so you can get the new videos when they come out. And leave me a comment below if you have any great domain names that you picked up in the recent years. Drop the domain name. Let me know what you got. Love to hear about wonderful domain name victories. Thanks again for your time, and I will catch you on the next video.